Okay, we have to then move to the current slate. And I know you've spoken out about Andrew Yang and tweeted some really excellent, sort of very searing critiques of his campaign. But initially he starts running, and Andrew Yang, he's got the name recognition, which number one already puts him ahead of other opponents that I do want to talk about. I just kind of want to talk about like who you would vote for and who you're excited about. But in terms of Yang, he did grow up north of New York, I guess, in upstate or Westchester or some shit. Where did he grow up again?
Yeah,
I've clearly done my research.
It's really hard to place because they are going to obfuscate everything. But yeah, like just outside. And then his wife is from Queens, so that's legit. So I can't ever hate on that. But yeah, there is a little bit distance, not only in geography, but also in, like, as you saw with like his videos and how he talks about the city. There's a little bit, like, I call him like the AI mayor candidate.
Seriously.
Right? So, like, he's sort of just like, an algorithm of
right.
adjusting and readjusting. And here I am holding a donut. I am
right. Like
let's play a little bit of that. Actually, this is from his bodega. His first time at his first attempt at a bodega promo.
This was the first promo I saw him do when he was running for mayor. It was the first time I heard about it, and I was like, "Oh boy, this is going to be a fun campaign."
Okay, let's see if I can do this. Oh man, yeah. Okay. No. Come on, Franny. All right, here we go. I support the green tea.
Breakfast the champions, some green tea, a banana. How you doing, bro? A banana, pretty healthy.
A banana, healthy.
This is literally my favorite part. So he tries to pick off one banana, cannot, and then just picks up the whole thing.
14,000 bodegas, so much. I love bodegas. And we
He's not even in a bodega.
Continue to stay open and do their thing.
He hands a large bill. Says, keep the change.
Forgets the bananas.
Forgets the bananas on the table.
Can you imagine a New York City without bodegas? I can't imagine it. Let's not have to. All right.
You just thought the cashier needs potassium. Keep the change, and here's some potassium.
Yeah. Right, keep the change and the bananas.
Is really important. So here's what I will say about Yang is he's so cringy, it's almost relatable. Is that a thing where it's like he's so painfully trying that you're like, I get it. Not everyone can be cool.
Yeah, he has so little charisma. He reminds people of themselves, and he's just like, you're like, yeah, that's a real guy.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Obviously, I don't think that's why people really like him, but
I can't think of why they really like him then.
I mean, I think like if other candidates who are running, like Diane Morales or Scott Stringer or Maya Wiley, had this like pedestal because of some previous thing, we would also be kind of finding elements about their personality that would either endear us or this or that, and in their cases mostly endear us, and we don't really have that opportunity because he's sucking the air out. And this is the interesting point in New York, which in California we've had it in different cities. We've never had for like 100 years ranked choice voting.
Yeah,
this is the first election with that in our lifetimes, and everyone's trying to figure out like, how do we game this? How do we play nice? How do we, depending on where you're coming from? And I feel like Andrew is gaming it in a way where he's dividing and conquering, because the value of him right now is his name recognition. So he's sharing his name recognition with the smaller, the other candidates. And they're sort of like posing with pictures for him, and it's just elevating Andrew. And they're dividing them when they should be coming together right now as a slate and being like, vote for us as your top three.
Yes.
And really together go after Andrew. And they're doing the opposite. And it's dangerous.
That is exactly what you have to do if you are progressive in this ranked choice voting. So just to go over, Maya Wiley senior vice president at the New School, and Henry Cohen professor of urban policy and management, was a former counsel to Bill de Blasio. Scott Stringer, New York City comptroller, who is also a front runner. Maya Wiley's a front runner. And then Adams, right?
And we have Diane Morales.
And sorry, yes. And I was talking about front runners, but yes, Diane Morales, Brooklyn native, single mother, former public school teacher, has run multiple nonprofits, running on housing for all, defunding the police, taxing the rich, investing in public infrastructure. Super dope. I read a great article in these times about her. You know, but the front runner, I mean, Maya Wiley seems to be a front runner, and Stringer is a front runner. It seems, I mean, they've all met their, like, I guess there's a what is it? A matching fundraising goal that you have to get some city funds for your campaign, I guess.
Yeah. They're all reaching that in different degrees. Right now, Diane has like an advantage in terms of how much local money she's getting. And, you know, just to put Diane in context to all of these candidates, I've worked with Scott Stringer, who has been kind of an incredible ally to like left movements and immigrants and stuff. Like, you wouldn't really picture it. You would see him and stereotype him as like just white dude who's going to just screw people and this and that. But he's really kind of like legitimately put his neck out on the line, oftentimes before it was very popular, when it was risky, and stood with like movements and progressive values. And Diana, in addition, like, she's the one who's new on the scene, but like in the interview when they're asking, do you smoke pot and would you deregulate it, she's like, everyone's like nervously answering this like old ass question. Yeah. She's like, I prefer edibles, you know, like.
Nice. Nice. Diane Morales.
Diane Morales is awesome.
All right.
But the runway is so short. I mean, March, April, May, we have only a few months before this primary. And then we will know, right? Then it'll still come down because the general isn't going to be a ranked choice, just the Democratic the Democratic and Republican primary. Is there anyone on the Republican side who seems formidable?
No.
Yeah.
They're all running as Democrats.
Yeah.
Like, basically Andrew Yang, like you were describing how your New York story was very much under Bloomberg. Yes. And the same people who were under Bloomberg and working for Bloomberg are now working for Yang. It's like Tusk Strategies and like that. And it's sort of like the same plan where he's proposing himself as like meta political or not.
Right.
And like this
post-political,
basically, you know,
businessman. So he has no political experience, just to remind everybody. And you mentioned that, like, you know, in a tweet that I loved, which was basically like, look, I have nothing against the Yang gang, which I might differ with you on, but to look under the hood and look at who is actually running the campaign, despite some of his, you know, more progressive ideas like UBI, which really did put him on the map. In addition, and we can talk later about him being Asian American, and I have a lot of thoughts on that. But what are your thoughts on, like, looking under that hood? What do you see when you open the hood of this campaign?
So my initial interaction with Yang has been during the presidential campaign and his supporters. So when I'm petitioning for Bernie, my initial reaction was like, there's a lot of like new young people who are involved in politics getting behind Yang.
Yes.
And what I've noticed, the difference between the Yang supporters and the Bernie ones and the rest, was that they were very new to politics. So they were coming in and, you know, it was a lot of bro culture and all of this toxic stuff that was there, a lot of cargo shorts, like things like that. And, but they were like, not all of them, but a lot of them were like earnestly like, I care about people. And this man cares about people. And I want to help the person who cares about people. And that's
I had the same experience when I spoke to some of my like younger friends who were supporting Yang, and I was like, why? And he's like, well, Yang is someone who's going to try to give everyone $1,000 a month, and that's a really good thing. And I was like, yeah, I mean, UBI is important, but I mean, have you seen the plan and all that? And they're like, nah, like, everyone else is like a politician and is fake, but he's like real. And I was like,
It-
what are we talking about?
It does feel, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, look, we know outsider status counts for a lot. Look at what the fuck we just went through with Trump, and we'll continue to go through. And so
And the UBI argument, I think, was something that resonated with a lot of people. And I don't think he was wrong in terms of bringing it up as a thing.
It worked as a gimmick too. It was like, I'm an outsider and I have one thing. Yeah, sure, I've got a number of things.
Yeah.
There's a Jedi mind trick now, because he took, so UBI is imprinted in people's minds as this $2,000 a month thing, right? So what he did
1,000, but yes,
campaign is 1,000. So what he did for his New York campaign was rename it to just BI, and basically reduce the number where it's not universal. It's going to be 500,000 of the neediest as defined by him. And then we did the math, and it's basically a wage of 96 cents an hour. And if you add that up, that's like, it'll buy you a Metro card every month, like an unlimited Metro card every month.
Nice. Hey.
$20 in your pocket. Like,
oh
it's
God, just make it free.
On the street.
Yeah.
There again, the bumper sticker politics, they're like UBI, Yang. And then when you say, well, but have you looked at the plan on his own website? It says it's $2,000 a year. That comes out to 96 cents an hour. And he wants to get rid of 15, and he wants to get rid of public services.
And it's only for 500,000 people.
Yeah. So the net is a loss. Even at 96 an hour, it's going to cost everyone much more. And really line the pockets. So the also interesting thing about the people who run his campaign, they literally run his campaign Tusk strategies, is that they aren't just Tusk strategies. They're also an organization called Tusk Venture Capital. And what they do, this is where New York and California kind of meet, because they're most famous right now for screwing California drivers. And they were part of that. They were part of that action where they basically prevented the classification of app drivers to be and
whoa. The people behind the no on, I can't even remember what
Prop
measure.
21 or 22.
22.
Yeah.
They're now running his campaign.
It's the same like Tusk, like this like stranglehold of like Tusk.
You guys are so fucked. You guys are fucked.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We are fucked. But
so they're actually, not only did they push, like, are they hired to do the consulting around those kind of things, but they're actually personally invested as like investors in Uber, investors in real estate here and stuff like that. Like, they're personally invested, and they have this candidate, and they're advising him, and it's a big mess, right?
I mean, I didn't know it was the same lizard people, and now I'm like, shit, that's tough, because they were able to pass that proposition.
I mean,
and it was surprising to us.
The founder brags about that. It was just his kind of brilliant work. He's like on a tour bragging about this victory, saying it was like his brilliant wording around the question that tricked people into voting it that way. He was open about it.
Yeah, I mean, and that was the thing. That was exactly what I had been saying the whole time, which is like in the same state where Bernie won the California primary, people voted for this proposition and did not allow app drivers to get classified as employees.
That gave a loophole specifically for these companies. And I said, the only reason that this passed was because of ballot trickery. It was the language behind it made it seem like you were voting so they would get classified as employees and get benefits and all the things that yes and no. There was also just massive amounts of money poured into it. I mean,
but that's what the ad campaign was.
Ruined. We got text messages like, hi, my name is Shauna and I'm an Uber driver, and man, I need you to vote on this, and just like,
but that's the trickery. That's the trickery.
The bumper stickers again. Like, they have the bumper stickers, we don't.
So what is the left in New York, as big as it is, and as I know coalition based as it is? Who are the candidates they're like coalescing around, and is there a sense that there's gonna be some sort of strategy for ranked choice? My experience in San Francisco is that we had two top progressives to go up against London Breed, who ended up barely eking out, but she won, but she almost didn't. We had a fighting chance much more than if ranked choice had not been a thing.
Yeah, in New York, when something is close or even if progressives win by an inch, we're going to lose because it goes back to the machine for like court cases, challenging numbers, challenging ballots. Like, so we have to always win at such a large level.
Right.
That it's unquestionable. It's like being immigrants. Like you just have to like you have to
be undeniable.
work 3
Do
times
more.
as hard, like to get on the same register. So I'm not, unfortunately, I'm not seeing what I would like to see on the left in New York, where there is this coalescing and like unity ticket beyond this, and to like really fight him on and create spectacles, because he's out there. Everyone is like doing things virtually because of COVID. He doesn't give a fuck. He's knocking on
Yang is very much out.
He's going there, and they're not creating the spectacle to even just get their names out. You know what I mean? But the movement is very much behind. It seems like the Scott Stringer pop, a union is behind Maya, and like a real, like the younger activist kind of types are split between like Diane leading and then with Scott Stringer as well. But those 3, the other guy you mentioned who's a front runner, Adams, is a cop, you know, and he's going to do very pro police things. Yang really, there's so many red flags he sends to us. I just wish I could, if I sit down with every New Yorker for like 5 minutes, we could get through this. But like, he opened his campaign with a guy, Richie Torres, who's like a new rep who used to be in local government here, and he is the most like sellout person you'll ever meet. And in his case in particular, there's a letter in New York of all the mothers who lost their children to NYPD violence, basically saying he betrayed us. He looked at us in our face. He betrayed us. Do not trust this person. And the first person, he serves the Bronx, which is among the poorest, most marginalized communities in the U.S. and if you measure certain things all across the world. And his first action as an elected rep there to Congress was to do events like pinkwashing Israeli annexation.
That's right.
So like he's very much positioning himself as like the receiver of like all the dark money, all of the bad influence stuff. And Yang chose him not because he's skilled or anything, as a signal that to all the bad guys, like this is our dude. And Yang has kind of tried to cover that by trying to do this libertarian thing where he's also like posing in pictures with lefty people and bringing on some of those people and trying to position himself as beyond politics. And it's unfortunately, I don't know if it's working because it's just his name, but it is very dangerous. It's a formula that's worked here before, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I wanted you to actually just give, I mean, before you give a pep talk to anyone who is considering voting for Yang, I do just want to mention that he recently spoke at a press conference about anti-Asian violence, and his solution, I'm not sure if it's better or worse, but it's in the same terrible vein as his first solution to anti-Asian violence that he put out in the form of an op-ed in the Washington Post, which was to, quote, be more American. And that was his advice to Asians. He says, this was from that op-ed, we Asian Americans need to embrace and show our Americanness in ways we've never before. We need to step up, help our neighbors, donate gear, vote, wear red, white, and blue, volunteer, blah, 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 and do everything we can to end the crisis. In other words, don't wear such short skirts,
right?
So you won't get raped, and don't be so Asian, so you don't get hate crimed,
right?
Which my friend and comedian Jenny Yang, who's been on the show, had a hilarious response to. She actually went out on a street corner and like just like waved an American flag, like, "It don't hurt me," and he followed that up by saying, if he's elected mayor, he'll create an NYPD anti-Asian hate crime task force.
And like the temperature of where we are is in like lower, like in the Asian communities, in the East Asian communities in New York, like in Queens and in Lower Manhattan and parts of Brooklyn, is like to decriminalize things, to like have these like solutions where we're investing in communities. That's like the forefront of the conversation. And he's going back to like more police, when he himself took a tour in Queens of with like organizers of sex workers in Flushing, and he was shown how police brutalized one person and many people, but one person in particular, the Yang Song story, where she was in the massage therapist thing, and then they basically did a raid after like torturing her to become an informant and all of these things, and she fell out. She jumped out a window during the raid and lost her life. And our local electeds in Queens gave him the tour, and Ron Kim, and he gave them the tour, and he was so moved that he agreed to decriminalize sex work like fully, according to his public statement. But then he just keeps saying more cops for everything. And then also like, as someone who's like Central Asian, it's just peripheral to me on like especially the East Asian, like the attacks on East Asian. But it's also like, as a Jewish person, Yang, his foray into like Jews was, hey, here's an article. I'm going to outline all the 4 things that are important to you: money, foreskin, Israel, and police. That's basically his platform.
Oh my God.
And it was just disgusting, right? Like, it's just like, if anyone else said this, they would be called, like, if a Republican said it openly, they would say you're anti-Semitic.
Right. Yeah. It's like, here are a few of your favorite things, the anti-Semitic version, you know? Money and Israel and circumcision.
Absolutely. I mean, in terms of the cringiness that applies, it seems like it applies all around, and it seems like he will do anything for a little bit of clout, and he can try and speak the language. Another attempt at sort of a progressive point was this tweet, where there's a plan to release a Green New Deal for New York. What is it? For New York, like City Public Housing, Housing Authority. And AOC responds, I wrote the original Green New Deal for public housing, which was written with NYCHA residents, advocates, and building trades to create over 30,000 jobs in the city and revamp public housing. This is not that plan. My original work is here. She links to the actual legislation. And then Yang responds in a tweet like, ooh, interesting. I'll look into this. Thanks. Double thumbs up. So he's sort of trying to say the right things, UBI, or maybe just BI for 500,000 people. I'll decriminalize sex work. Yay, Green New Deal. Do you think he actually means any of it? I mean, I think that's a really open question. Raf, what are your thoughts? And what would you say to someone who's like, yeah, but whatever, innovation, let's do it. New thing. We need something new.
Yeah, I have a lot of talks. Like, I had befriended a lot of like the Yang folks. Some of them are very against him now, like super volunteers, people who used to work for him, people who reported his campaign for sexual abuse, and then he did an internal investigation and just shut it down, just like Cuomo's doing. And there's a lot of secrets there, and there's a lot of Yang people who are in my DMs ever since that thread, and just like sharing me like on everything and saying like, why aren't journalists talking about this? Here's the evidence. Why aren't journalists talking about that? And he's just like it's like the way like to address like Yang folks is pretty like, just be like, if you see that thread in the beginning when I'm like, it's an open door, they're actually like pretty reasonable. And you can, you can have an exchange to them. And then they started to challenge him in that thread. They started saying, Andrew, is this true? Like, how can you do this? Is this true? And then he doesn't respond to them. And it just kept happening and happening. And there's like people in that thread who were Yang supporters at the beginning of the thread. And at the end, you'll just watch like how they change and they become not Yang supporters by the end of that conversation. The problem is like, how do we have these conversations with as many people as possible? And like, and that's really like the problem. Like, he did the Green New Deal, he got the bumper sticker. Now people are like, Green New Deal, Andrew Yang. And really, like, AOC's response, like, there's not a bumper sticker, right? Like, it just sounds like, I did this first. What are you talking about? To them, they're just like, it's a certain type of personality that's being drawn to him in particular, who are just like the people who like Elon Musk and use words like disruption and things like
Elon
that.
Musk reply guys are the fucking
It's
worst.
crypto
the
people.
worst. Yes.
They're just. It is
It's funny
you know,
because crypto people are all also crypto fascists. You never really think about that.
not
do
all
you?
the time.
Cryp-
I've
cryp-
known a few people who are into crypto who are good people.
I'm not a crypto person. I bought a little bit of Bitcoin. What do you want from me? I'm saying people who share constantly about crypto, they're also crypto fascists. And I think there's a connection there.
There is something about this thing where, because they figured out like mechanical things, that they're somehow experts in social things.
Yeah.
Yes.
When in
Yes.
fact, in reality, their social things are a mess.
Yeah.
And
Completely.
Elon Musk, like really, like,
Yeah.
like, how do you
Yeah.
grow
What
up in
they're good at-
apartheid South Africa and your dad owns
Yeah.
like,
Right.
God.
a diamond mine with children like looking for
Right.
gems?
Yeah. He's like, I grew up on an emerald mine, but I know a thing or two about, dealing with the social ills of
And
society.
it's also this grift of he's like a banker, really, like, who
Yeah.
created PayPal and stuff like that.
Yes.
And he's like cosplaying as an engineer. Like,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
a lot of these people, like even Yang, he never had a successful business. This is like red hat, blue hat now. It's like
Yeah.
really clear. Like the grift is really, really clear.
They're
Like,
as
marketing
soon as he put the
gurus. They're
word-
big marketing gurus.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be good. It's math on a blue hat.
Yeah.
Literally, that's it. And so like that's the other thing I'll say is that, say what you will about these like BS sort of innovator disruptors, they're messaging pretty damn well. And they're able to, use the bumper stickers, as you're saying, and overinflate themselves. And I think sometimes Democrats, often because they're trying to protect fiefdoms of power,
Yeah.
are not good at drawing attention to themselves, mostly because they don't want their records to be investigated. you know?
Right.
And so they're like, oh, man, maybe just reelect me just cuz.
Right.
Or elect me just cuz. So the other thing I'll say, though, is we will see. I mean, I really hope that he does not win this primary and the mayorship, but I also think that we don't know who he's going to be until we see it. We have a pretty goddamn good idea that he'll be just as pro-cop and just as, he'll try again, innovate by actually, obliterating bodegas and putting them all on like, whatever robo wheels and, getting them to outsource everything, outsource the egg sandwich. That's what it feels like he's going to be, but who knows? Maybe I don't know. I think that's the question mark. I think is what's attractive to a lot of people, is they're like, I don't know, maybe. It's like, well, have you heard of Diane Morales or like Maya Wiley or Stringer?
Yeah.
Like, they're like, no, I haven't. Because once again, if you're new to politics, you're not really going to know who the comptroller is.
Yeah. Nobody wants the mystery box they've never heard of,
Everybody wants the mystery box.
No, everyone. You want the mystery box that's famous, like
Yeah.
Yang. I mean, because Diane Morales is also a mystery box for people who don't know her, but
Right.
they're like, nah, Yang's the cool
Here's
mystery
the thing
box.
with Diane and the others. New York City already has a list of things that we need, and we've had it for decades. Right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, Cuomo sitting on billions of dollars that was sued to get back from him, that he's stolen from public school. So it's tax money that people paid with their property tax, goes to the state and never came back to their school. Billions. You could look up your school and you could, like, I looked up my daughter's school and it's like, oh, $12 million. Like, he just took it.
Oh my God.
And there's a
Wow.
lawsuit that he lost, and a settlement that he has to pay. And they're just like, who's going to enforce it? You know what I mean? So there's a very long list of what society has already organized around what's needed in the priority order. And these candidates, Diana Morales, Scott Stringer, to some degree Maya, are going to listen to that. They use words like co-govern. They use words like, those kind of words, versus Andrew Yang, who's going to come in and be like, hey, just like his tweet, he says, you know what would solve the police crisis with Black Lives at the peak of Black Lives Matter uprising? He said, call them guardians and make their uniforms pretty. That's literally what he said during his presidential campaign.
Yeah.
He's just going to go in and try to like be seen as this change maker and this thing. He's going to throw out that list.
Yeah.
And
Move to
nothing is
higher
going to come
ground.
good of throwing out that list. This is not
He's-
a
yeah.
playground for libertarians.
Of all the places that aren't playgrounds. But then again, New York, I mean, barely survived Giuliani, barely survived Bloomberg. I guess has done a little bit better, but not great under de Blasio. I mean, the track record isn't good. I'm like, but you can Andrew Yang will absolutely oversee the streets of Fifth Avenue turning into like gondolas when it all gets flooded by like climate change.
Yeah.
And then he'll be like, free gondola rides. It's great.
Yeah.
We're innovating.
Yeah, universal basic gondolas. Cool. Thanks, Andy.
Don't give him ideas, please.
Do not.
Yeah.
This is, I mean,
He was
what's
just- he
worse
was
than a
watching
Seinfeld?
the pod just writing down.
I mean, like I would tell
universal.
a Yang supporter, and I know there are listening here. Like I would tell them to go look at the Rubin Report interview with Yang and watch how
Yeah.
he nods his head when Rubin Report and other right wingers that he constantly goes on. He goes on platforms with white supremacists.
Joe
Mm.
Rogan.
Goes on those platforms, and he's nodding his head when they are saying things like, "Hey, so you're going to use this as like a Trojan horse, right? To like get rid of public services. You're going to use UBI, right?" And he's sort of just like, yeah, nod, wink. And then I'll DM him and he responds, and I'll DM Yang and he'll be like, yeah, I'm just trying to make it a big tent. I'm trying to get, all it takes to get everyone's support. But really?
Yeah.
So Yang's DMs are open, you're saying?
His DMs, I don't know if they're open, but he followed me during the campaign, and then when someone follows me, I put them.
You
to
DM, yeah, they're open to RAF. Just a counterpoint, real quick. Joe Rogan is not a white nationalist. All right, let's go on.
Please make space to defend Joe Rogan.
I'm not the Joe Rogan comparison is really important because Joe, I've listened to Joe for years. And I've always come to the conclusion that if you can't convince Joe of something, you're going to lose the country, just because I could at least agree that apart from the racism and the sexism and all of the toxicity around him, that he is often influenced by the last person he speaks to in a genuine way. And to me, that's like the best case scenario for Yang. The problem is all the people surrounding Yang are like the worst trash in the city. And that's what's scary. And so it is like sort of like the Joe Rogan kind of aspect there.
Surrounding himself with trash. So he's like the pigeon with the little cutout bread around his neck.
I go on Joe's podcast, or you go, he'll like be talking like a socialist, and then if someone else will be going on, he'll sound like someone who wants to bring concentration camps back.
I'm not saying that's evil, but that is someone who has a huge influence, and we don't have to talk about Joe Rogan, but who has a huge platform, whether it's Yang or Rogan or anybody, but who's actually not smart enough to be able to carry that platform, and who doesn't actually have their own ideas, original or not. Don't make that little face, Matt. Matt's making a little.
I'm not making a face. I'm just saying,
like, Joe, if you're out there, let me on your podcast.
No, I never listened to it. He's too dumb for me. But I
Yang
understand.
is not. These people are not smart. Like, what I'm saying is they're not. Like, Yang just sounds like he's yesing people to death because he wants to be liked, but he actually doesn't stand for anything. And he's like, I'm open to innovation. Again, it's the Musk, it's the Yang, it's the Rogan, it's the like, I'm open-minded and apolitical, and I don't understand history very well. And I don't actually have a really strong moral underpinnings, nor have I ever faced that much adversity in my life to really guide me towards some moral underpinnings. Have you become a patron yet? Patreon.com/Bitchuation is where you can directly support this show and help me make it sustainable so that I can do more of what I do best, doing this.